The spatula slipped from Taylor's hands and clattered to the kitchen floor, but she didn't bend to pick it up. Instead, she stood frozen at Station 3, staring at the perfectly seared scallops in her pan while tears began streaming down her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible, but her words cut through the MasterChef kitchen like shards of glass. I left my sister blind forever. The entire studio fell silent. Gordon Ramsay, who had been encouraging another contestant just seconds before, stopped mid-sentence and turned toward Station 3 with an expression that shifted from confusion to alarm to deep concern. And in that moment, 20 cameras captured the exact second when a cooking competition became something far more devastating, a confession that would haunt everyone who heard it. The cameras kept rolling, but this was no longer about culinary excellence or competition glory. This was about a 22-year-old culinary student who had been cooking with the taste of guilt in her mouth for 2 years, convinced that her moment of panic during a house fire had stolen her sister's sight forever, and what happened when that crushing responsibility finally broke her in front of millions of viewers. It started as the most challenging pressure test of the season. 6 contestants remained after weeks of grueling elimination challenges, each one fighting for their place in the semifinals. The MasterChef kitchen blazed under studio lights, every surface gleaming with the kind of perfection that made great television. Gordon Ramsay commanded the space with his signature intensity, his white chef's coat pristine, his energy crackling with the authority that had made him legendary. "Tonight," Gordon announced, his voice cutting through the kitchen's electric tension, "you're facing a mystery box challenge that will test not just your technical skills, but your ability to create something extraordinary under extreme pressure. 2 of you will be going home. 2 eliminations, 1 challenge. 6 chefs fighting for 4 spots in the semifinals." Taylor Bennett stood at Station 3, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, her chef's whites immaculate, her hands steady on the stainless steel counter. At 22, she looked like the picture of confidence, focused expression, professional posture, the kind of presence that suggested she belonged in this kitchen, competing with the best home cooks in America. But appearances were deceiving, because while her fellow contestants saw opportunity and advancement, Taylor saw something else entirely, another chance to prove she could succeed at something, even though she'd failed catastrophically when it mattered most. What the cameras didn't capture, what the producers didn't know, what even the show's psychological evaluators had missed during casting, was that Taylor had been carrying the weight of her sister's blindness for 2 years. Every technique she'd mastered, every dish she'd perfected, every moment of success in this competition had been tainted by one inescapable truth: her younger sister Emma would never see again, and Taylor believed it was entirely her fault. "Lift your mystery boxes," Gordon commanded. "You have 90 minutes to create a restaurant-quality dish that showcases your unique culinary voice." 6 contestants lifted their silver boxes simultaneously, revealing premium seafood, exotic vegetables, and artisanal ingredients, the kind of components that made experienced home cooks salivate with possibility. Taylor stared down at fresh scallops, baby vegetables, and truffle oil, beautiful ingredients that should have inspired creativity and excitement. Instead, all she could think about was the last time she tried to cook scallops, 3 weeks after the fire, when her hands had shaken so badly from guilt that she'd burned them beyond recognition. Around her, the kitchen exploded into controlled chaos. Marcus immediately grabbed the prawns, his mind racing toward a seafood pasta. Jennifer selected the duck breast, already envisioning a perfectly pink protein with seasonal accompaniments. The energy was competitive, focused, determined. Taylor's energy was different. She moved mechanically through her mise en place, her knife work technically perfect, but emotionally hollow. Every cut, every seasoning adjustment, every technique she employed was a reminder of the path that had led her here, a path that started in smoke and flames and her sister's screams. 45 minutes remaining," Gordon announced. Taylor tried to focus on her scallops, on achieving the perfect sear that would showcase her technical skills, but as she heated her pan and prepared the delicate shellfish, her mind drifted to another kitchen 2 years ago, in the small house in Sacramento where she and her sister had been home alone during their parents' anniversary trip. It had started as a simple dinner preparation. Taylor, then 20 and in her second year of culinary school, had been teaching her 16-year-old sister Emma how to make their grandmother's chicken piccata. Emma, who had dreams of becoming a photographer, was more interested in documenting the cooking process than actually learning the techniques. Take a picture of the pan when I add the wine, Taylor had instructed, focused on the delicate timing of her sauce. The flame is going to be gorgeous. But when the alcohol had hit the hot pan and flared up dramatically, neither of them had noticed that the kitchen towel hanging nearby had caught fire. Neither of them had seen the flames spreading to the curtains above the sink. They'd been too focused on the perfect photo opportunity, too distracted by laughter and conversation to notice their kitchen becoming a death trap. By the time they smelled smoke, the fire had spread beyond anything they could handle with a simple extinguisher. 30 minutes remaining. Taylor's scallops were in the pan now, but she could barely focus on their progress. Her hands were beginning to shake as the memories overwhelmed her ability to concentrate on the present moment. The evacuation should have been simple. 2 sisters, 1 staircase, 1 exit, but in the chaos of smoke and panic, Taylor had made a decision that would haunt her forever. Instead of heading directly to the front door, the clear, safe exit they'd used thousands of times, Taylor had panicked when she heard Emma coughing behind her. In her terror, she'd grabbed her sister's hand and pulled her toward what she thought was a shortcut through the back hallway. It wasn't a shortcut. It was a dead end that led them directly into the heaviest concentration of smoke. By the time the fire department found them, Emma had suffered severe smoke inhalation that damaged her optic nerves beyond repair. The doctors explained it in clinical terms: toxic smoke exposure, oxygen deprivation, permanent vision loss. What they didn't explain was how a split-second decision made in terror could destroy someone's entire future. 15 minutes remaining. Taylor tried to plate her scallops, but her hands were trembling so violently that she dropped the first one back into the pan. Around her, the other contestants were executing their final presentations with confidence and precision. She forced herself to try again, but all she could think about was Emma. Emma, who had wanted to be a photographer, Emma, who would never see a sunset or a photograph or her own reflection again, Emma, who had trusted Taylor to lead her to safety and had paid for that trust with her sight. 10 minutes. Start thinking about final presentation. Taylor managed to get her scallops onto the plate, but her hands were shaking so badly that the truffle oil drizzle looked more like abstract art than professional plating. Her perfectly cooked protein was ruined by the chaos of her emotional state. 5 minutes. She tried to add the finishing touches: microgreens, a drizzle of sauce, the kind of elegant presentation that could win challenges. But as she reached for the final garnish, her hand knocked over the plate. The scallops scattered across her station like debris from an explosion. Taylor stared down at the ruined dish, and in that moment, the weight of 2 years of guilt and self-blame finally crushed her completely. She didn't just cry, she broke. The kind of breakdown that comes from the deepest places of shame and responsibility, the kind that can't be contained or controlled. Time. Hands up. Step back. But Taylor couldn't step back. She stood at her station, staring down at scattered scallops that perfectly represented her scattered life, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to do anything except sob over the mess she'd made of everything. The other contestants immediately noticed the breakdown at Station 3. The kitchen, which moments before had been buzzing with post-challenge energy, fell silent as attention focused on Taylor's obvious distress. Gordon, who had been preparing to begin the judging, walked quickly toward her station. "Taylor," he called out, his voice gentle but urgent. "What's happening here?" Taylor tried to answer, tried to pull herself together, but the words wouldn't come. She just stood there, crying over a plate of ruined scallops, unable to explain the weight of 2 years of carrying her sister's blindness on her shoulders. "Taylor, look at me," Gordon said, approaching her station. "Talk to me. What's going on?" That's when Taylor looked up at Gordon with eyes that held too much pain for someone so young, and spoke the words that would stop the competition and change everything. "I left my sister blind forever." The kitchen fell completely silent. 5 contestants stopped their post-challenge discussions. Camera operators seemed stunned into stillness. Even the background hum of kitchen equipment seemed to fade away. Gordon's expression shifted from confusion to deep concern as he processed what he'd just heard. "What do you mean you left your sister blind?" Gordon asked carefully, moving closer to her station. Taylor's response came out in a broken whisper that somehow carried across the silent kitchen. "There was a fire in our house 2 years ago," she said, her voice cracking with each word. "I was teaching Emma how to cook. We were laughing, taking pictures, and we didn't notice the kitchen towel catch fire." Gordon stood completely still, understanding beginning to dawn on his face. "When we realized what was happening, I panicked," Taylor continued, the words pouring out like they'd been trapped inside her for years. "I grabbed her hand and pulled her the wrong way. Instead of going to the front door, I led her toward the back hallway where the smoke was thickest." The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Everyone, contestants, crew, judges, was beginning to understand the weight of what Taylor had been carrying. "The fire department found us there," Taylor whispered. "Emma had breathed in so much toxic smoke that it damaged her optic nerves. She's been completely blind for 2 years because I made the wrong choice, because I panicked and led her into danger instead of safety." Taylor collapsed onto her knees beside her station, overwhelmed by guilt that had been consuming her from the inside since that terrible night. "She was going to be a photographer," Taylor said through her tears. "She had this incredible eye for beauty, for capturing moments that other people missed. And I took that away from her. I stole her dreams because I couldn't think clearly for 30 seconds. Gordon stared down at this 22-year-old woman who had been competing at the highest level while carrying a burden that would crush most people, and made a decision that would define his legacy as more than just a chef. Behind the scenes, Gordon did something unprecedented in pressure test history. "Stop the cameras," Gordon said quietly but firmly. "Right now." "Gordon, we're in the middle of judging," a producer started. "I said stop the cameras," Gordon repeated, his voice carrying absolute authority. "This young woman is in crisis, and she needs support, not an audience." The MasterChef kitchen went dark. For 20 minutes, what happened in that kitchen existed outside of television, outside of production, outside of everything except human compassion responding to human pain. When the cameras came back on, Gordon was sitting on the floor beside Taylor, and something fundamental had changed in the kitchen's atmosphere. "Taylor," Gordon said, his voice gentle but firm, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. You did not blind your sister." Taylor looked up at him through her tears. "But if I had gone the right way—" "Stop," Gordon interrupted gently. "You were a 20-year-old college student in a house fire. You were terrified. The visibility was zero, and you made a split-second decision under impossible circumstances." Gordon helped Taylor to her feet and continued speaking, not just to her, but to everyone in the kitchen. "House fires kill people in minutes," he said. "The fact that both of you survived at all is a miracle. The fact that your sister is alive, healthy, and able to build a new life is what matters." Taylor was still crying, but she was listening. "But she can't see because of me," Taylor protested. "She can't see because of smoke inhalation during a house fire," Gordon corrected firmly. "You didn't cause the fire. You didn't cause the toxic smoke. You were trying to save both of your lives under impossible circumstances." Gordon turned to address the entire kitchen, including the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing is survivor's guilt, something that affects people who escape disasters that harm others. Taylor has been blaming herself for circumstances that were completely beyond her control." He looked back at Taylor. "Your sister doesn't blame you for her blindness. She's grateful you saved her life." But Gordon wasn't finished. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "Taylor, when was the last time you talked to Emma about that night?" "I can't," Taylor whispered. "Every time I try to bring it up, I just break down. She doesn't know how guilty I feel." Gordon began typing on his phone. "What's her number?" "Why?" "Because I think it's time you heard from her directly how she feels about that night," Gordon said simply. Within minutes, Gordon had Emma Bennett on FaceTime from her apartment in Sacramento. When she appeared on the screen, her face lit up with joy at seeing her sister. "Taylor, oh my God, you're on TV. I've been watching every episode." Taylor stared at her sister's face on the phone screen, a face that looked happy, healthy, alive, and began crying again. "Emma, I'm so sorry," Taylor said. "I'm sorry I led you the wrong way. I'm sorry I took your sight. I'm sorry I ruined your life." Emma's expression grew serious, but not angry. Concerned. "Taylor, what are you talking about? You saved my life, but you're blind because of me." "I'm alive because of you," Emma corrected firmly. "The fire department told us later that if we'd stayed in that kitchen even 30 seconds longer, the ceiling would have collapsed. You got us out of there." Emma leaned closer to her camera. "Taylor, I never blamed you for my blindness. I've been worried sick that you blamed yourself." The conversation that followed was watched by millions of viewers, but it wasn't meant for television. It was meant for two sisters who had survived a tragedy and needed to heal from it together. "I've built a whole new life," Emma continued. "I'm studying adaptive technology. I'm learning audio editing. I'm still creating art, just in different ways. And none of that would be possible if you hadn't gotten me out of that house." Taylor was sobbing, but these were different tears, not the tears of guilt and self-blame, but tears of recognition and relief. "But your photography dreams are different now, not gone," Emma interrupted. "I'm working on audio documentaries about people who've overcome obstacles. It's still storytelling, just in a different medium." When the call ended, Gordon addressed the entire kitchen one more time. "Taylor, you've been cooking with guilt for 2 years, but guilt over saving someone's life, guilt over surviving a disaster, guilt over circumstances completely beyond your control. That's not justice. That's just pain." That's when Gordon did something that had never happened in MasterChef history. "The pressure test results are postponed," Gordon announced. "Taylor needs to cook one more dish, but this time she's cooking with gratitude instead of guilt." What happened next was unlike anything in cooking competition history. Taylor returned to her station, but she was different now. The guilt was still there, but it was joined by something else, understanding. She wasn't cooking to punish herself for her sister's blindness anymore. She was cooking to celebrate the fact that they were both alive. Her second attempt was a revelation, pan-seared scallops with a delicate sauce that somehow managed to taste like hope, like survival, like the kind of love that runs toward danger to save someone else. When Gordon tasted it, he closed his eyes for a long moment before speaking. "Taylor," he said, "this doesn't just taste like perfectly cooked seafood. This tastes like courage. This tastes like someone who's finally understanding the difference between fault and tragedy." The episode, when it aired, became more than television. It sparked conversations about the survivor's guilt, about the split-second decisions people make in emergencies, and about the difference between responsibility and circumstances beyond our control. Taylor didn't win MasterChef that season, but she won something more valuable: the understanding that saving someone's life, even imperfectly, is not the same as causing their injury. Today, Taylor runs a cooking school that specializes in adaptive techniques for people with visual impairments. Her sister Emma works there too, developing audio-based cooking instruction programs. Above their kitchen hangs a photo from the MasterChef episode. Taylor and Emma together, both smiling, both grateful to be alive. Below it, a simple sign: "Survival is not guilt. Love is not perfect. Both are enough." Because that's what Gordon Ramsay taught Taylor that night. That sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is forgive yourself for being human in impossible circumstances and understand that love doesn't require perfection, just presence.